Calling?
Oh, he's gonna go to Cole.
No.
Let me know when you're speaking.
Yeah, speed.
A few more questions.
The reason I'm sliding is if you sit in this chair, you just kind of gradually slide down.
That's why I keep going forward on mine. Any regret selling to PerkTech?
Not really. I don't spend much time looking back.
Was it a good decision to sell to PerkTech at that time? I know you mentioned it a little earlier. I'd like to. It wasn't in a complete sentence, so I'm trying to get your say.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they had a lot of money and I didn't have any, so it was a.
Can you say who they were?
PerkTech had a lot of money.
Yeah. Stand by.
One way to do it, Kay, would be to say,
Huh?
for a fifth grader to a seventh grader, how would you describe the end of your participation with MITS and what happened? So it's just so they don't wonder, where is it now? You know, why isn't it still here in Albuquerque? So just sort of. That's good.
Well, PerkTech had bought us out, and there really wasn't too much reason for me to stay. They'd hired their own people to run MITS, and I had some things I wanted to do, including going to medical school, and I wanted to farm some. So what I did was move back here and bought a bunch of farmland and farmed for about 3 or 4 years, and then went to medical school. And I had a non-compete agreement with PerkTech, so I couldn't do anything in electronics for 5 years after I left Albuquerque. And by that time, I think I was from my second year of medical school, I guess. Or first year of medical school, maybe something, I don't know, like that. But anyway.
Did you follow what PerkTech did with the company afterwards? And how
Well,
that made you feel?
shortly thereafter, they were bought out by Triumph Adler. And Triumph Adler essentially bought out everybody else. You know, all the stockholders. They just gave you cash for the stock, you know. So within a year or so later, all my stock was out. It created kind of a funny thing, though, that when I left there, because they knew that, you know, the guy that, Poppy was the guy's name, the president. Poppy and the guy that I worked for, the executive VP, I was a division vice president, and Poppy was the president, and this other guy was they knew that I thought they were wrong about the computer. And I didn't think that made any difference. They didn't make what I thought didn't make any difference. Well, it turns out, after I'd resigned, somebody looked at the stock file. It turns out I was the largest PerkTech stockholder, and it hadn't occurred to him. Well, I got this panic call from Poppy one day, telling me how he wanted to make sure we were still good friends and there wasn't any problem. But that has nothing to do with that story. It's just kind of interesting how games people will play.
We'll go back and ask just a couple specific questions. Where was MITS located?
Originally, it was over the Cal Inn behind the State Fairgrounds in the southwest corner of the State Fairgrounds. If you come across the road there that runs along there, that would have been MITS. Would have been in there.
What was that area like at that time?
At that time, it wasn't a bad area. It was a bunch of little shopping malls with little, what do you call them, storefront shopping malls. Our next door neighbor was a massage parlor, and I think it was a laundromat maybe down on one end.
And there's a question.
Where did you live in Albuquerque with your family? Just because people would be interested.
I lived, 4809 Paladura was that picture you got. I ultimately lived up on Alameda, up in Alameda. I actually lived right on the river. And, that's not true. I wasn't right on the river. I was about a quarter of a mile from the river, but I was underneath the bluff down in the river valley.
Any other questions before I ask one last one?
What about the kids?
The kid. Oh yeah. When there's some assumption that the Altair was first sold as kits only. Can you?
Was the first what?
That was sold as kit computers only, but
Not only, but just first.
No, it was originally, so it was offered initially as both kit and assemble, but the first ones that were actually shipped were assemble units just because we got the, we had them assembled before we had the manual finished, and that's the only reason.
You also, wasn't there another first, like the Kid of the Month Club? Didn't you also do that?
Yeah, I think that was my idea, where they would buy, they'd get a part of the Altair each month, but they didn't have to pay the whole thing all at one time. Yeah, just as soon forget that idea. That wasn't a very good idea, as it turned out.
I have one more question. It's
Most of the bad ideas turned out to be mine. If you really look at it too closely, we don't get into too much of that stuff.
but you have a lot of ideas, and they just keep coming. What would you recommend? Again, our age that we're targeting here, it's junior high school kids. What would you tell middle school kids on how to live life? Yeah.
Probably the most important thing is to be honorable by your own. You have to define what honorable is, but to be honorable. And then kind of work from there. You know? If you have integrity, that makes up for a lot of things. A lot of inadequacies. Because my experience, people would pick up on the fact. That's the reason the bank carried with us. We were always absolutely straight with them. Never played any games. They might have been happier if I'd lied to them, but but we never. They always knew exactly where we stood. And that was true of everybody we ever dealt with. If we had somebody we owed money to, like a vendor when things were really tight, I never lied to them. I always told them exactly what the situation is and where we were going and what we thought we could do to get out of the problem. But and I'm thinking about that financially there, but that's true of life in general. You don't lie to yourself, probably the most important part of that. But to maintain a real strong sense of integrity and honor in terms of your dealings with other people as well as yourself. Don't kid yourself. I'm not sure that's the kind of thing that would resonate with somebody in the 7th grade, though. Because that sort of thing doesn't mean that's a little bit. Well, for 7th grade level, I'm not sure what I would tell somebody.
I think that's a great thing,
It is.
personally. I think that's a fantastic. When we say for 7th grade, we just mean, a simple-ish statement when we're saying it that way. So I think that's a very direct statement.
It seems that you've followed your passions your whole life.
The exception to that rule is with girls and IRS.
Oh, not be truthful. You're getting into sticky territory here.
No, what were you saying there?
Well, I was just looking at your life. You've really, come up with an idea, and you've really followed that idea through. And then, like you said when we were sitting out having lunch, that you want to move on every 5 years. Where does this kind of passion?
Well, you got to change things on a fairly regular basis, and you get stagnant if you do the same thing. At this stage, I'm getting probably too old to do too much of that. I've got some projects going. I was hoping if we'd had some time, I'd take over my electronics shop, but I'm too old to make too many radical changes now, and medicine doesn't really allow you to do that. You get so much committed in medicine, you just can't walk away. Matter of fact, the smartest thing for me to do is walk away and go somewhere else, because we're barely making it here. We do a lot of indigents. We see a huge number of indigent folks that just don't have any money to go anywhere else. So we collect less than 50% of what we bill because of that. And I get frustrated by that, but there's some other. I don't mean to get off subject on that. What were we talking about?
Your passions.
Following your interests.
Following your interests.
Well, in medicine, you get caught up in that. That's where I was headed with that. Was you get caught up in that because there's so many people that really depend on me that I would really feel bad if I left. I mean, there's a lot of people would make a bit of difference in the world. Probably half the people I see would make one bit of difference. But there's a significant number of people, if I left, they would be without medical care, and they would have a very difficult time in getting any. We see some AIDS patients that nobody else will take care of, and a lot of old folks.
You mentioned some of your electronic projects. What are you working on? What are some of your projects?
I've got a little job we're doing right now. It's a network for pinball machines. It's where these places where they got a bunch of pinballs. They'd like to be able to monitor the pinballs all from one place. So I've got a little network system design that we will hopefully be doing the final testing on next week. That'll work for that. I don't know whether it's mainly sell 3 of them or something, but that's probably that's my current project anyway.
Not the big money maker.
I don't expect it to make me the king of the pinball business or anything like that. But it's interesting.
Well, it seems like what you do is what you like doing for the motivation for a quality result and something interesting, and
Yep.
and it's not following the money like some people nowadays are doing. Did you have any last thoughts? Because we want to be respectful of your time. Last thoughts you want to just say about the Altair and how it affected the industry, or thoughts about your time at MITS that you'd like to summarize?
Somebody's really gonna have to figure that out. I have such. When I think about the Altair, a lot of times, I hear people talk about how it was sort of a big deal and all that, but I don't really see the Altair as being that big a deal. I'm happy to get all the adulation, all those checks in the mail and all because of it, but I don't really see the Altair as being that big a deal, and that's not trying to be humble. I just don't view it that way. It was a big deal till we got it running. Once we got it running, it wasn't a big deal anymore. Then we moved on to the next project. And be interested to see what history says about it if it ever makes the history books. But I think it's been watered down so much. I think a lot of that's going to be lost. A lot of what we did with the Altair, I think, will be lost, because that was a giant step to go from nothing to the Altair. And after that, when you've got something to work from, it's a lot easier.
That's a great statement. Thank you so much for taking your time with us.
Scott Runtone?
Really, really appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, thank you.
Do we
I'm
have
going to ask 30 seconds
I hope you
quiet.
get 30 seconds worth useful stuff out of that.
Easily.
36 useful stuff that won't embarrass me. I guess I should have said.
Okay, we're going to have 30 seconds of quiet for the room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.